Hey guys, it's been a while. Work has kept me away. I've been traveling for the last month or so, but I hope to be back in the workshop longer term for the next couple of weeks and be able to get some work done on the open source rudder pedals, which are still work in progress, and I hope to have released sometime later this summer. But this video is something that I recorded last month. It's an add-on kit that's for the gimbal itself, and it's Patreon exclusive because I want to give something special to the Patreon supporters, and it help funds the project. So here, check out the video. I want to show you this. This is a Patreon exclusive add-on kit. It is a helicopter cyclic configuration using these common motorcycle steering dampers. So these cylinders are filled with hydraulic fluid and they create hydraulic resistance. And with the adjustable kind, you can tune on a per axis basis just how much dampening fluid you want. So if you want a very resistive pitch but a light roll, or vice versa, you can adjust the valves on the dampers to have just the right amount of resistance for your application. And this configuration is really great if you remove the springs completely or use very light springs, and then it's a perfect helicopter cyclic where you don't have a center position, but you still have the sensation of moving the cyclic disc on the rotor heads. It has this offset piece that allows the stick to come far enough back into the seat like a helicopter's would, but with this configuration you can use the standard Thrustmaster adapter piece as well without the offset. Now, an important thing for using this add-on is you'll need the new 1.2 and 1.3 revision of this top piece, which features additional holes for mounting these. And these just have M5 by 50 bolts that go through. You use an M5 to 8mm bushing, and that's how you attach the bottom of the piston to the base. And then you have this piece slid up onto the extrusion that mounts the top of the pistons. And that's how these attach. And it feels really fantastic. Now, I wouldn't recommend it for warbirds if you're flying World War II aircraft. They don't have hydraulic controls, they have direct linkages to the control surfaces. So the damping might feel a little bit, let's just say, resistive compared to the twitchiness you might need in a Spitfire. But if you're flying any modern jets or helicopters, I highly recommend this Patreon exclusive file. So if you head to patreon.com/right-rudder-left-stick, you'll be able to join up. We have $5 a month tier, which gives you access to all the exclusive Patreon features, such as early access to videos, early access work in progress files, and Patreon exclusive add-on components to this project. Now, a note about dampers. So these are steering dampers. You get them for motorcycles. They come in the kind that have an adjustable knob, and that comes where you can increase or decrease the damping. An important consideration for these dampers is you're going to want to get good quality ones. These two that I have were not great when I got them from AliExpress. And the problem that they have is stiction. A little bit of pressure on it, it takes a little bit of breakout force. That is not ideal. This one I got from a different seller. You see it has a flat knob, and it is really great. So there are differences in these dampers, so definitely keep an eye peeled for reviews to make sure you get one without stiction, because this one is very smooth. Now the problem is I've only got one of these, and I've got two of these, so it's what I got. Another thing about the damper add-on kit is there's been an upgrade since the original beta release. So if you've printed one recently, you probably have the right plate. But if you printed the original one that I released last year, then it's missing these extra holes, which are necessary for this upgrade. So we're going to have to remove this, and remove the top. before we put this on, we actually need to mount the new parts. So we're just going to run the cable through. So that's run through the center. Now we've got these guys. These are a new part. And what we need to do is we need to put an M5 nut in there and M5 nuts in there. And I recommend using lock nuts because this part has a lot of movement. So having a lock nut will keep it nice and secure. So you can just drop the lock nut in the end there. And drop them in there. Alright. Next you're going to undo these Velcro ties. It's obviously easier to install this when you first build the gimbal, if you're doing a fresh build. I'm just going to disassemble this completely. Make my life a little bit easier. Yeah, so get that restrictor plate back on. There's a revision to the restrictor plate coming, which will make this step unnecessary, where the restrictor plate will be split, so you can put it on after the fact, but I haven't gotten to the printing those just yet. I'm working on the pedals. Before we proceed, where our dampers are going to go. So you've got your chair back here. You're going to want to have a damper at the front probably to prevent it from hitting any mechanism at the base of your chair. And then it's the question of which side you want to have your piston on, your roll axis piston. Actually, for now, just to make my life easier, I'm just going to run, this is a M5 by 50. Just holds the, we'll need this later, but I'm just going to screw it in just to hold that nut on the end there. Okay. So that goes here. And then we got M5 by 20. Now these are intended to be countersunk, but I've discovered that non-countersunk works, and if you've already bought a bunch of M5 by 20 for the rest of the gimbal, then you can just use non-countersunk. But the holes in the bottom here are countersunk. This is why we put the restrictor plate on first. Yeah, get that guy in there. And see, that fits into the shape of the restrictor plate. Put the next bolt up into that nut. Now we're going to want to make sure these are nice and tight because we don't want this to be clicking up back and forth. That's the reason why I recommend using lock nuts if you can. Just so that these stay very tight and rigid. Even, squeeze the plastic because we really don't want this to move. Now, this piece can go back on the top. Okay, so now we've got the plate back on. We've got these guys. Now we should put this thing back together. Now, we have a decision to make. Because our gimbal is set up with a dog leg, there are two different ways of mounting the pistons. There's this one, which if you have a centered stick, or this piece extends up higher, you use this one so that it's an equal distance to each one. If you're using an offset, then you need to use this one. This one is shorter, and it mounts here, like that. Now we've got our pistons. This part goes up, and you need to see that it's offset like that. You see that? So we want this. So this one actually needs to flip. Yeah, so this one, it's on this side. That one goes there, like that. Now, we also need these bushings. And what these bushings are for is they take the 8mm hole and they turn it into a 5mm hole. Now you might have to change your scale settings on your printer a bunch of times to get this to be the right fit, but you want it to be snug enough that it doesn't slop around. So that bushing goes in there, and we take our M5x50. You slide that through. Whoops, there goes the nut. Really reef that down. And then that's our first linkage. Now, the height of this will depend on the travel, right? So let's actually put on the first one. So you can use a shorter bolt, but because these usually come in kits, like when you buy a package, even if you get them at the hardware store, it's usually like 5 of them in a bag. So you can use them here as well. I'm going to use them. Saves on bolts. So yeah, you got your bushing. Put it onto the bolt. Put it through. See, it goes flush there. Take our lock nut. There we go. Okay, so this guy is still sliding up and down because we need to find the position for this. So what we need to do is put the stick at full back, and then kind of, you don't want to go to the edge there, just kind of, just a little bit short of the edge. Okay, and then while it's full back, just tighten one of the bolts. Alright, now go full forward. Yeah, so this can come down a little bit. Loosen that bolt again. Push it down. We wanted to have it kind of equal, just so that the hydraulic fluid stays balanced. It doesn't all stick to one side of the piston. You might notice that it's a little bit gloppy. Now these are the crappy pistons that I mentioned before, but as you move them, let me turn up the damping on it. As you move it, it'll distribute the fluid inside the piston, and then it'll become a little bit better. Okay. Loosen it again. Yeah, you can see that. And then if we compare it to the roll, it's a little bit sticky. Yeah, see, that's the unfortunate thing about the other piston, is that it does make a big difference on how it feels, having a quality damper. But I have these dampers, and it's enough for me to design this kit with, and I don't want to spend another $60 on replacing them. I'd rather use the Patreon money for continuing to work on the design. So for me, I can endure these crappy pistons, but I definitely recommend trying to find good quality dampers if you can. Order them from Amazon if that's available in your country, so that you have a good return policy if you get a bad one. When you buy them from AliExpress, you're kind of out of luck if you get a bad one. Because they technically still work for what they're designed for, they just don't work very well. Let's put on the next damper. This is designed to flip around the other way. So this has to come off. I need to take this collar off. You can loosen that guy, and that's how you flip it. So this one needs to be mounted this way, because it actually mounts that way here now. You want to make sure that these pistons are the same height as each other, just so that they're balanced. And it needs to warm up. Yeah, see, these dampers, see that, how it's kind of sticking? Now you can fix that by putting stronger springs in here. I mean, not fix it, but like address it, but it's got really bad stiction. Yeah. So if I put the good piston in there, you can see just how much better it is. Like it performs much better. Like you see how it has that smoothness, whereas that it's sticking. And like this thing, it very, like I can just with my pinky, I can move it. Actually, that stiction is coming from this guy. So I just remove that pin. Yeah, if I disengage the damper completely, you can see just the difference a quality damper makes. I can just do it with one finger. Like it has very smooth movement, very smooth movement from this proper damper. Like it glides right back to center. And even if I turn up the damping to very high, it still very slowly finds its way to center. Very slowly finds its way to center. So getting quality dampers is important for this. This one, as comparison, if I reattach it, okay, so now with just this one attached, set on the lowest setting, you can see that it doesn't, like it has bad stiction, like, and then it just kind of collapses, right? Like it's stiff, 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 and then it goes. So it works, and like if you're manhandling, if you're really going to town, like it'll work if you're deep in a dogfight, but for like gentle use, yeah, like that's on the lowest setting, and I really have to push it to get it to go. And yeah, if I have it on like the medium knob, it struggles to find center. Look how much time it takes to get to center. Same with forward. And like you see how it just goes and then catches. And then if I set the damping to minimum, it goes and then stops. So, quality of dampers is very important. These dome-headed dampers, at least the ones I have, no good. These dampers, this damper with the flat head, this one's okay, you know? It very smooth. Very nice. Quality damper. Same amount of pressure. Doesn't even want to move. Ugh. Yeah, and that's on minimum. That's minimum damping, and it just does not want to move. So, important to get good dampers. But, to finish this build, we're going to put these crappy ones on because it's the only pair that I have. So unfortunately I'm not going to be able to really demonstrate the capabilities of this setup while I've got these crappy dampers. So subscribe to the Patreon and hopefully I'll be able to replace them. Now I'm not going to put this on yet because there's one other piece of the kit. We've got this offset piece that comes back here, allows you to have more of a cyclic for helicopters. And you can see with the weight of the Thrustmaster grip, these dampers, these crappy dampers, are actually not too bad because the inertia up here and the leverage is enough to overcome their crappiness. And then if I'm flying helicopters, yeah, I could just take the springs out completely out of the gimbal, take the cams off, and then you have a cyclic. You can just leave it, put it where you want it. But of course, you can also work with the regular offset. If I put my foot on it, like I'm an office chair, you can feels pretty good. I mean, it definitely would be better with the other damper. No doubt about that. And this one doesn't center because of the quality of these dampers. It resists. It takes a while to get to center. And then I would recommend using the heaviest springs that you can with the dampers as well if you're going to use them in the jet position, because then you can turn the damping all the way up and then really have a lot of heavy resistance, but it still finds the way to center. But if I actually switch over to the other gimbal, which does have heavy springs, I can show that off to you. Now, what I've got here is my research and development gimbal. It's where I do a lot of experiments and prototype pieces. It's where the rudders are currently being worked on right now. But on this gimbal, I have heavy double springs. So I want to show you how these pistons work, even the crappy ones, with a heavy spring. So with a heavy enough springs, it overcomes the stiction, and the stick actually works. But the one drawback, at least for me, is that with heavy springs, after flying for an hour, your arm gets quite tired. And it's just because it takes a lot of force to kind of hold, not a lot of force, but enough that over time you kind of get a little bit sore. So it's very important to get very good quality dampers. Buy the dampers somewhere that you can return them if they're no good, because it makes a huge difference for the flying quality. Now, in the interest of the community and all my Patreon supporters, I'm not prioritizing replacing these just yet, simply because I'd rather spend money on getting these guys over the finish line. Like, there's still no top piece on it, but I want to get this guy finished, invested in getting that guy released to the community before I replace these dampers. But still, with good quality dampers, this system works really great. So I hope it works good for you once you build yours. So I want to thank again to all the subscribers who have been supporting me and helping me bring this project to all of you guys. Thanks.